Well, good to see you. And if we're ready, let's call this meeting to order. This is the Jenks City Council. It's Tuesday, September 15th, 2020, 6:03 p.m. Let's call roll, please.
Isbell.
Present.
Bott.
Present.
Dyke.
Here.
Ogier.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Murray.
Here.
Mayor Lee.
I'm here. Thanks for being here, everybody. Do we have any citizens' comments tonight on any item that's not on the agenda?
We do not.
Okay. And we will move on. We've got a proclamation tonight in honor of Larry Wewers. He is a member of the Jenks community who we lost recently. He sadly passed away on September 1st, 2020. He was a former member of the Jenks Planning Commission, serving for 6 years, from 2012 to 2018. Mr. Wewers was an intelligent man who cared about the community and those who resided here. He always listened to the concerns of citizens for the items on the Planning Commission agenda and took their concerns seriously. His goal on the Planning Commission was to help make Jenks a better community for all. Mr. Wewers was a proud resident and steward of the city. His loss is felt throughout the community, but his contributions will continue to live on in the city of Jenks. And now I'll read the proclamation in memory of Larry Wewers. Whereas Larry Wewers was first appointed to the Jenks Planning Commission on August 12, 2012, where he served for over 6 years. And whereas he was a proud resident and steward of the city of Jenks. Whereas he worked to improve the quality of life for his fellow city of Jenks residents during his tenure. And whereas he always took into consideration what citizens had to say about any issue. And whereas sadly, Larry Wewers passed away on September 1st, 2020. Now, therefore, I, Robert Lee, Mayor, the City of Jenks and the Jenks City Council do hereby recognize Larry Wewers for his contribution to the city and join with the Jenks community in offering condolences and extending its deepest sympathies to his wife, Linda, and to the rest of his family. Now, Councilor Isbell, I know you worked with Mr. Wewers for quite a while on the Planning Commission, and you'd like to say a few words about him.
Yes, please. I had the honor and privilege of serving on the Planning Commission with Larry for 2+ years. And although we didn't always agree on items, it was refreshing to listen to his perspective on things. It gave me more of an awareness to be a better planning commissioner. He was well respected and an asset to the city, and he will truly be missed. Godspeed, Larry.
Thank you, Counselor. And yeah, and our best, again, our best to Larry's family for their loss. Okay, so we will move on to the city manager's report. Mr. Shrout.
Mayor and all members of council, you received the weekly update and the city manager report in the packet, every city council agenda and JPWA agenda, but Katie had a really good idea of going out and taking pictures of everything that's going on a daily basis. And we've been trying to get those out to you in a timely manner. And I think that that's kind of a real-time update of what's going on. What she sent out in the last week that I forwarded on to you guys is a pretty large street patch on Sycamore Street over in South Lake Villas. The food truck festival, there were aerial pictures that public safety took with their drone. The chip seal at 101st from Elwood to the Jenks Public Schools Ag Building. All the meals that are being handed out, 2 meals a week to the seniors. The B Street Sidewalk Project, the Gateway Parking Lot Project, the progress on the Candlewood Suites at the Gateway development, the H Street fire hydrant replacement, some pictures of the new water meter installation project, and then Gary Head sent pictures today of at least one new guardrail on South Harvard, and they should have completed that today. And I would invite Chief Ostrom to talk a little bit about how the drone program is going. You know, if you recall, back in May of 2019, when we were having the floods, we found that drones could be very helpful in emergency situations. And so the council authorized the purchase and implementation of a drone program, and I think that we're pretty far ahead of other jurisdictions in terms of what we've been able to do with that drone. And I think one of the updates that we sent to you, I think this week, was on how the drone was used last week on a missing child. So Chief Ostrom.
Yes, Mayor, members of council, thank you. Yeah, just to piggyback on what Mr. Shaw said, what we found is through this program with the drones is our program is much more advanced in our FAA qualifications that they have and certifications that they have given us. So we found that we're actually not only responding to incidents in Jenks, but also responding to local areas. We've been to Sepulpa twice for missing children. We assisted Tulsa PD when they were having their demonstrations in town. And we've seen just really pick up even in Jenks. Over the last 30 days, we've had 4 different deployments, 3 missing children and 1 assisting Riverside Airport for a reported laser that was being shined in the pilot's eyes as they were trying to land. So it's been definitely a busy time for us. As an update, we now have 8 certified pilots total between police and fire. We have 4 drones that are deployable. We've learned some things through the program. Some of the drones we purchased initially, we're finding are not meeting some of the needs we currently have as we've advanced what our needs are. So we're looking to make some replacements to those, but use those smaller drones for some indoor flying that we're coming up with. So there's lots of things going on. Missing children, like Mr. Strout mentioned. We've had several successful flights to assist with missing children that have been missing, including even on the first day of school, assisting Jenks Public Schools with a young child that was missing as well. So I'd be happy to answer any questions beyond that, but we're very proud of the program, and it's definitely picking up and being used more and more for not only our agency, but local agencies as well.
Congratulations on that, Chief. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Any questions on the drone program from council?
Just a thought. Do you think we would be able to use it as a revenue generating opportunity with respect to outsourcing, something like that? Or is it just a community effort to share in our resources? And I don't really mean first responders or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's something we could definitely look into. I'm not sure with the amount of time that would take, what that would be as a return, because most of the time our drone operators right now are either on duty or coming in for overtime for those special call outs. So we definitely have to weigh that. As far as for local agencies, we're doing that free as part of our mutual aid agreements with those agencies.
Okay, thank you.
That's really impressive. That's a good thought, Councilor Isbell. That can be something worth looking into in the future. We'll let Christopher think through that, how that ought to work. We might put you to work, Gary.
Slide around and steal people's wallets.
No, I'm in. I want to do it.
Okay, that's what you're really getting at there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was all about me.
All right.
Are we gonna let him run and then try and locate him? Is that what you want to do with the drone?
Absolutely.
So many good ideas. All right. Is that it for your report?
We have a couple more things. Okay. One of the other items that we emailed about within the last week or two was the water quality testing that's going to be taking place. And I think that's taking place this week, and there's 65 different locations that will be tested. And I would invite Robert Carr or Tim to kind of give an overview of what this entails and how often we do this.
Thank you, Mr. Strout. This is Tim Doyle. Greetings to you, Mayor and Council. Every 3 years, the EPA mandates that public water systems test for lead and copper in their system. And so this is, we're in the 3rd year of our cycle, so we began testing for lead and copper in our system this week. And those tests are really performed inside of residential homes. And so as Mr. Shrout mentioned, we have 65 pre-approved residences that are pre-approved through the DEQ, where we can perform this testing and perform this testing. So basically, city staff has been going out. Yesterday, we handed out sample bottles and began collecting them today. I think that we have, if I'm correct, I believe it's 4 that we still need to collect, and we will have collected all of those samples, and then we will take them to the lab, and the lab will return the testing results. We don't anticipate any issues. We have, to my knowledge, we have not had any past issues with high levels of lead or copper in the systems. Years ago, prior to 1986, homes in their service lines from the meter to the house were made had higher contents of lead in them. Now they don't even use lead at all. So some of the older homes may have potential to have high lead concentrations, which can be a public health issue. So as I said, we've not had issues in the past and are not anticipating any, but that's why we test, and we'll be testing this week. We should get test results back in about 10 days from when we deliver. We're hoping to deliver them all tomorrow. And then we also provide those test results back to the residents that participated in the program with us. And if there's any sort of issues, then we provide them additional information on what to do if there's higher concentrates of lead or copper in their water. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Doyle?
Yeah,
Damn.
Tim, how
I
are the
couldn't get
homes
my mute off.
selected or the areas selected? I'm sorry, Kay.
Well, it's basically it's a percentage of the customer base that you serve, and so and then the use. Years ago, these were submitted, as sample sites. They get approved by the Department of Environmental Quality, and then they stay on the sample list. So, if the system continues to grow, we may need to add more sample sites. But they're just randomly selected in different parts of the city so that we get a good look at what's going on throughout our system.
So you're getting at least samples from every pump station or pump area, or however
No.
those areas are fed then?
No, sir. These are all sampled within the resident. Typically, there's not issues in the water lines themselves. There's no lead or copper in those. It's the service lines that come from the meter to the home, or possibly old faucets and things like that that tend to create issues. So it's really not in the water service line or in the water system lines. It's typically more in the service lines and in the residential home. And therefore, all of the 65 sample locations are all residential homes. And the resident actually takes the sample.
Okay.
The water, they ask for the water to be stagnant for 6 hours, in other words, not used, and then they're given a bottle and they just fill the bottle up, and it's real simple. They set it on their doorstep and we come pick it up.
Good, thanks.
You bet.
Hi, Tim. It's Kayleen here.
Hi.
Hey, can you kind of give me a cross section? I mean, how many are south? How many's in Old Town? How many's north of Main Street? How many's south of Main Street? Where the sampling takes place?
Well, like I said, it's throughout the city. I could generate we do have a map in our GIS layer that I could generate for you that we could provide to you if that would be valuable.
Yeah, I was just curious about that, because different things in different parts of town is different. So that's why I was curious.
Yeah. We can certainly provide that for you.
Well, very interesting. Thank you for updating us on that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Mr. Shrout, back over to you if you still have anything.
Just a couple more things. I know that different councilors have asked us about the new city flag that was approved, I think within the last year or two. And hopefully you'll be happy to know that those new city flags have been delivered to City Hall, the police station, and fire stations 1 and 2. And then we also ordered smaller flags to be installed along the bridge and along Aquarium Trail. Usually, I guess last year we had the public schools flag up in September and October, and then we put up American flags for Veterans Day in November. So I anticipate after those American flags come down in November, the Jenks flags will go up. So you could be on the lookout for them in the next 2 months, probably. And I sent out a letter, a request from Bo Van Pelt with SoCo Gymnastics, and he had a masonry requirement on that building that he was required to meet, and the deadline was September 1st, and he had asked for an extension, and he gave COVID as the reasoning. I think they were shut down for at least about a month and a half during COVID back in April. And so he's just requesting that he have till the end of the year. And I know this has gone before council numerous times, but staff had, unless we hear otherwise from more than one counselor, we were just going to go ahead and grant that extension and at the staff level. So beyond that, we were nominated for an award, a Team Builder Award from Keep Oklahoma Beautiful, which is a nonprofit. The Team Builder Award is for the city of Jenks, partnering with Up With Trees to plant trees in the city of Jenks. So, it's exciting that we're a finalist for that. They'll announce the winner in November. Last year, I believe we were a finalist for an award from the same organization for our recycling program. We did not happen to, we were a finalist, but we didn't win. So it's nice to be recognized, even if we don't win those. And then staff was able to request a $1.8 million reimbursement for payroll expenses related to public safety response to COVID. And so hopefully we'll know something in the next month or two. But obviously, anytime you have an opportunity to be reimbursed $1.8 million, we'll certainly apply.
That's right. Let's find some more opportunities like that while we're at it. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you to staff for everything they're doing around town. That brings us to any questions for Mr. Strout before we move on? Okay, that brings us, we have on the agenda NCOG project updates. The NCOG meeting was canceled this month, and so I don't know if Councilor Isbell has prepared something for us or if there's something from staff on that.
All I'm prepared to say is the meeting was canceled and the next scheduled meeting is 10/13. If you have any specific questions for me, please forward them to me in email or present them to me now, and I'll endeavor to get answers for you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to our first item of business, consideration and appropriate action relating to requests for approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions or motions on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Let's vote.
Isbell?
Yes.
Fox? Yes. Dyke?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Caitlin? Caitlin?
Okay, now I got it. Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Mary Lee?
Yes. And we will pull item number 2 and move on to item 3, discuss and potentially take action on offer for sale of a surplus Pierce fire engine from Keys Fire Department. Chief Ostrom, what do you have for us on this?
Mayor and Council, in your packet is the offer that Keys Fire Department has sent to us for engine 22, which we surplused earlier this last year. Just as kind of a reminder, when Brindley first listed that for sale for us, they gave us a value of that engine between $50,000 and $95,000. So we decided to list that for a sale price of $75,000, kind of in the middle of that ballpark, which we thought was a fair value. Key's offer to us is $45,000 for the engine, which is $30,000 less than what we have listed for. They did list a few things that they saw that were issues with the apparatus, as far as some things that need to be fixed in their mind. We have received quotes from our vendor for all of the repairs of these different repairs, and at a worst case, it would be about $14,000 in repairs for all of that, if they were all worst case scenarios. So our recommendation on this is to counter Key's offer for $60,000 and sell it as is, and if they reject that offer, that we go ahead and just reduce the asking price on the website to generate a few more traffic to that, down to $70,000, and proceed with all of those repairs that were noted, so that we don't have to worry about reducing for the next buyer.
Okay. Well, that sounds reasonable to me. What other people think about that?
Hey, Chief, I got a question for you. I noticed this came to council and you're asking us to essentially agree with you that to go back and do a counter offer. If this does get into a back and forth, I think maybe we can make the decision tonight to give you guys a pre-authorized selling price, so we don't have to keep seeing this come back and forth. I mean, between you and Chris Schraub, you guys sold more fire engines than all of us combined. So if you have a price in mind and you and the city manager already know where you want to be, I think if the mayor is acceptable to this idea, let's just give you a pre-authorized price now and be done with this, so we don't have to look at it again. That'd be my suggestion.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. Does it seem like the market is handling used trucks like this, Chief? I mean, departments are needing them obviously around the country, but what are you seeing locally or around here that may or may not be able to do something other than the keys?
Yeah, we've actually had quite a bit of interest in the engine, quite a bit of inquiries. Most of the inquiries we're getting are basically talking about COVID slowdowns and unsure of what budgets are going to be. So I think, pushing this down the road a little farther as budgets stabilize across different agencies will be a good thing. It's not generating any mileage right now, and it actually has value for us as reserve engine if we were to need it. So I don't think we need to be in a hurry to sell it. I think we need to be smart about what it is and keep that value. I would not be comfortable going below the $60,000 mark at this point, unless we see a huge downturn in the used apparatus market. But right now, it's priced in the ballpark with other engines and similar type of use.
Well, I think I agree with Councilor Box on this, that we should be able to give you guys, the authority to do something with it. And you've already kind of priced it in an area that's the estimate, but you're willing to come down, which, shows we're negotiable, which is not like a car salesman, I guess, maybe. They're not bad mouthing car salesman, but just, we're not in the business of that. So we got to do what we know, what we can do. And so, if it's a motion that Corey is presenting, then I would second that if that's the case, but we didn't put a dollar amount. So I guess open for discussion.
Thank you. So what kind of motion do you need to give you the flexibility you need to move forward with this?
I would say if council is comfortable with that $60,000 mark, and with those repairs, because that's a little bit, we had initially not planned on making a lot of repairs in this being a used apparatus, but those two together, I think, would give us a safe value. We'd relist it at $70,000 if Keys does not want it for $60,000, and that gives still a $10,000 play with those repairs to still be a great value for a truck in the future.
Okay.
I would agree not going below 60, because I think it's worth more than that. Even though you may not agree with that, but the prices of vehicles have gone up. So let's just leave it at 60 and say is our bottom, and that's it.
And I'm all about the money. We don't have any funds that are waiting on this expenditure or this money to come in. It just goes back into the general fund.
Right.
When it was
So-
initially passed by council, it was approved to be put directly into the apparatus replacement fund. And we don't have any apparatus we're trying to replace right now. So this funds would go right into that apparatus replacement fund for future purchases.
So we have 6 months to a year to play with it. So yeah, I'm completely in agreement with making a bottom line of 60 and let you do the negotiating.
Corey, are you going to do
Sure.
Gary, is that
Any other
your?
comment? Any other comment, Mayor?
Nothing else from me.
All right, well, then I would like
Go
to
ahead
make
if you're
a
ready.
motion. I'll make a motion on item number 3 that the council authorize the fire chief and the city manager to execute the sale of the said pumper truck at a minimum sale price of $60,000 without further action from the city council.
Second.
Okay. Let's vote on that.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Bouger,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
Yes. All right. Thanks for working on that, Chief. All right, we'll move on to item 4, request to approve JZ 20661 PUD 121. A request by Josh McFarland for approval of planned unit development 121 for Melody Lane. The general location is 716 West Main Street. Ms. Hilton, good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. This item is something that you all have been anticipating. It's something that you've seen in part previously, and now it's back for the final round, or at least for now. Because Josh's vision is really big, so who knows? We may see him touching this property again. But at this time, we're looking to do a planned unit development. We are not changing the zoning. The zoning is commercial shopping, and it will stay commercial shopping. They're wanting to do a planned unit development for 2 primary purposes. They're wanting to add a brewery, and that is not currently in the code. I'm sure we'll get there with the update. And then they're wanting to have an outdoor venue, and that one gets a little bit tricky in our code. So we said the best route is going to be a planned unit development, and that's what you have in front of you tonight. This went to Planning Commission September 4th. They approved it 7-0. There were some questions, which I apologize, I failed to answer. If one of the questions was, would the brewery serve food? And that is yes. It's a little bit of a non-traditional kitchen, but it's what a lot of the restaurants are doing now. So there will be a food menu. Is it family friendly? And that is yes. And if you look through the packet, you'll see the conceptual plans for the brewery, and their goal is to have a space where you can bring your children, you can hang out and have quality beer. And will they be serving other alcohol? And this one gets a little bit, I just stepped back and asked about this one because I had forgotten to. They may serve local brewed, I don't guess you brew wine, local wine. So the Able Commission has different rules for breweries and things, and apparently if you have local wine, that is fine with them. So they also talked about limiting events on Sunday, but that was not included in the motion. So if you turn to page 67, staff had some comments. I've talked to Josh, he's very much aware of these. He's going to update the planned unit development after tonight in case you've had any additional comments. One thing I want to bring to your attention is we are allowing, and we kind of stuffed it in use unit 18, but it says accessory eating establishments, and we said food truck only. So he wants to have a designated area for food trucks. At this time, maybe 1, but it could change. It would not exempt him from following rules put in place by the health department or put in place by the city. And this is a funny typo, which I saw for the first time. Item number 3, use unit 24 light manufacturing. We stuck the brewery in there, but it is not a maximum of 6,000 square feet. It is a maximum of 6,000 gallons. So I just saw that for the first time. Number 4 is outdoor entertainment and recreation. And we really didn't have the right place in the zoning for this one either. So this is one of those cases where we got very, very creative in the planned unit development. And you can see it says use unit 19.5. And I said, hey, Josh, let's just create a definition. And we took a little bit of use unit 19, which would be allowed by right, and then a little bit of use unit 20, and came up with a new definition. So that's where you get use unit 19.5, commercial amusement establishments not requiring a large site near a commercial trade area includes outdoor recreation and open air activities. And it was perfect for what they want to do. So again, the request is to add a planned unit development on top of the existing commercial shopping. They did the parking that I had asked and talked about. Basically, there is a shared parking agreement, which was already there, but it's mentioned again in the planned unit development. Page 68 is just a zoning map, and it kind of talks about what the zoning is around it. And then it also says what are the actions of the planning commission. Page 69 shows the city council action when you're considering a planned unit development. There is a corridor appearance district map, and you can see they're a little bit off. I think my square kind of moved down. Apologize for that. Page 70, you have an aerial view of the shopping center, Melody Lane. And I like on page 70, we showed you what it used to look like, and the bottom one is a rendering, but it very, very much looks exactly like the rendering. So very excited about the progress that's already been made, and then the future tenants. So I had given Josh some comments. He agreed to those comments. When I reread it for the 3rd or 4th time, I thought, I missed a few things. So bless his heart, he got more comments. He's okay with them. They were just kind of a little bit of nuts and bolts, nothing to be too concerned about. Staff and Planning Commission asked City Council to approve PUD 121 per staff comments and any new comments that may come out of tonight's meeting, and revise and resubmit them for a final as approved stamp within 10 business days.
Okay, very exciting. Any questions or comments from council on this?
I guess a question what I have would be, and it may not be pertinent right now, but I guess going into the outdoor area and assuming then there's going to be amplification, music, things like that. There are apartments kind of to the southwest of that. Has that been addressed with them at all, that there's a potential of this coming, or are we going to limit hours operation wise, or does that come with something different?
It is addressed on page 74, and then it moves over also to page 75 of your packet. And I apologize, this is the actual planned unit development, so this is past the staff report. It says outdoor entertainment and recreation will consist of special events such as family movie night, family picnics, farmers markets, mercantile, recorded and live music, private rental use, community events, and sporting activity, including league play. So that's where it kind of defines the outdoor recreation. And then if you look on page 75, hours of operation, 10 to 11 p.m. daily. And then if there was, I may be missing it, hang on a second. Events will be notified to the public via on-site video marketing not less than 5 days prior to a scheduled event. So if there was an event that was going to take place that would go beyond those hours of operation, it would be posted 5 days in advance in order to notify the public of the upcoming event.
Okay, so the hours of operation of the music or any activity would be 7 days a week?
Yes. 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week.
$11 o'clock on a Sunday night? Yeah, I mean, there are events sometimes. But that's why I was kind of getting into, I guess, curious of it.
Sure. You're welcome to speak with Josh. He is available in the audience, and he can answer questions. I know that his goal is to have a family-friendly venue and to be respectful of the neighbors. And they did talk about that at Planning Commission. One comment was maybe restrict any events on Sundays. But in reality, the church that's adjacent to that property is very excited about the development and looking forward to using it as well. So they would have been interested as well as other people. So if you want to have a more in-depth conversation about the hours of operation, Josh is here to answer your questions.
Yeah, no, I just kind of bringing it up. I don't know if any other city councilors, look at it from the same aspect that I do for Sunday. I'm thinking even, like a Friday or Saturday could almost go to midnight even, if you're going to look at things like that. But a respectful time is great all week. I just was, I guess, more curious about Sundays for that. But yeah, whatever. I'm just bringing it up for discussion.
Yeah, that is a good point. What kind of events are we anticipating? And what kind of noise are we anticipating kind of later at night?
I think I'd feel more comfortable letting Josh answer that, but I do know that he plans to do probably maybe up to 12 big events that would be advertised citywide, and those would probably not likely unless there was an actual holiday. So for instance, New Year's Eve, if it ever fell on a Sunday and everybody wants to stand outside and drink warm mulled beer, cider, wine, something, and bring in the new year, I guess they could. And then that would certainly go beyond the 11 o'clock hour, but that would be noticed. And would you like to speak with Josh?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and I spoke with Josh a little bit earlier with Councilor Lynn and Councilor Corey, and there's some great ideas. And when you mentioned New Year's Eve, yeah, there's going to be exceptions, and yeah, that's fully understandable. I just 52 Sundays a year having music going till 11 o'clock at night. That's again, I just was throwing that out. And Josh, you may have some ideas that it may or may not need it.
Well, thank you, Councilor, and thank you, Mayor, and everybody. Welcoming of all questions, and we want to make it really clear that we would value being good stewards of the community, and if there's better ideas or thoughts of restrictions, things like that make this more family friendly and good for the community, we would welcome that. Our goal is to make sure we get the multifamily houses that are on the other side of the levee. We would like them to be patrons of our establishment and come over and enjoy it as well. So we don't want to make them mad. So I don't see us doing late night concerts over there. Our plan would be to keep it open as wide as we can on the hours for exactly what Ms. Marseille said, which is that, if a holiday or something fell on that day, maybe people aren't working the next day, that we would want to give the community an opportunity to take advantage of that time.
No, I think that's great too, and I guess it would be a case of with the PUD that we wouldn't necessarily have to say that you could only do these to the hours, but if you had an event come up and you, like she said, you advertise it, it doesn't have to come back before us. I don't know if that's a permit thing that would have to be done. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. You said you are wanting to publicize these events, and what does that process look like from your understanding?
From my understanding, it would be a much like when you drive by, for lack of better example, when you drive by River Spirit Casino and they have Dwight Yoakam playing June 22nd at 7 p.m. or whatever the advertisement is. We would advertise that leading up to the event a long time in advance. That way, if there's issues with that event, then hopefully somebody could bring that up and it could be discussed prior to that.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for that clarification.
Do you guys
Anyone else have any?
You guys mentioned the need for a permit if a band was going to come in and put on a concert, but they need a permit prior to, because if that were the case, we approve most permits. I mean, I'm not expecting Motley Crue to come out here and play at 11 o'clock at night, but is that what's going to happen, or does any band get to come anytime you guys feel like they're needed, or does Riverwalk Crossing have, Craig, do you know if Riverwalk Crossing has hours of operation where they shut off their live music, and do they require a permit to do outdoor musical events? I mean, we can follow that model, but yeah, anybody know?
I do not know that.
Okay.
I don't see any big issue with it, to be honest.
I can sort of see Craig's point at 11 on a Sunday night, but I mean, if this isn't going to be the next Canes Ballroom, I don't know that it's going to be an issue, on a reoccurring basis. If it is going to be the next Canes Ballroom, we can deal with it, later. That's a good problem to have, but I didn't think much about the 11 o'clock, and Pete brought it up, and I can certainly see if you've got youngsters living in the apartments, or that sound's going to travel pretty far. You probably know there's a complaint in your future.
Oh yeah.
And I address all complaints to the owner of Melody Lane, and not to the city council.
I mean, like I said, we would love to, if there's a way to keep it as broad as we could on the hours, that helps us plan when an act is coming in and they say, well, due to routing, we could play at your establishment, but it needs to be starting at 8 p.m. And sometimes that might happen with a big act that we might have to get I don't see that happening on a Sunday unless it's a Christian act and the church is involved with it. But at the same time, I'll be in bed at 10 o'clock on a Sunday, so I'm not going to be, I wouldn't mind restricting hours on Sundays. As long as we could come back with some kind of a special permit if everybody agreed to. I'm just trying to keep things as simple as possible.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not trying to restrict it by any means, Josh. I was just kind of throwing that out there for discussion, and having the fact and the knowledge that you want to be as family friendly as possible. You're not going to keep an establishment going if you start getting the neighbors agitated, and then they're going to come to us, and then we got to try to do something different. But no, I'm not trying to restrict hours by any means. I just wanted to throw that out a little bit for discussion. If the other city councilors understand the of it, then I'm all go with it.
Would it be prudent just to take that hours on Sunday down to like 9 p.m.?
I don't want to restrict you again, to watch it. I mean, whatever you can always just cut it off. If we gave you the 10 to 11, you could always just say, hey, as a courtesy to the neighborhood, we're gonna shut it off at a certain time. And I don't even know what the hours of operation of even selling the alcohol would be. You may have to cut off alcohol at 8 o'clock on Sunday, and people are going to pack up and leave anyway, theoretically. I'm just saying. So
we've changed all those rules, Craig. That was a long time ago. But I do like the fact, this is Councilor Dyke, that you did acknowledge the neighborhood apartments, that you want them to be, customers of yours. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is he knows they're there. He knows what his target market is, with the family friendly. So I think he's aware of that, even just mentioning, changing the times on Sunday if necessary. So I don't see any problem with keeping them the way they are. I think the biggest thing is just, we know that Josh is aware of it, and that's huge.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Just getting it out there and letting people know that we're trying to look after whatever they're going to be able to do and want to do. And I think it's wonderful because it's something that we don't have here. And bringing this in is fantastic. And so I don't want to ruin it for the neighborhood or for Josh or the people that are going to be putting this together, that we're going to be limiting them where their hands are tied. But I just the idea, I just wanted to throw it out, but I think it's a good go. And if he's willing to, hey, Sunday, even though we can stay to 11, let's maybe, crank it down a couple notches or something. That's always something you can do on your own. So no, that's all I need to say on it. It's great.
Okay.
Hey, Josh, this is Councilor Isbell. Would you happen to have any ideas about video out there, televisions, the Chiefs winning the next Super Bowl, things like that? Because that's important to me. Monday Night Football, it'd be a great venue to have a cold water and watch a football game.
We plan on hosting family movie nights, so the opportunity for the football games will definitely be there, I think.
Okay, you got my vote then.
We would
So we
also
can move the meetings back to Monday night, Gary, and we'll have meetings there. Is that what you're saying?
I'll bring my iPad.
I was gonna say, if Marseille has her way, we'll have more mulled cider, I guess. That's what she mentioned.
Whatever it takes. All right. Well, any other questions for Josh?
I'll make them. Kay's trying to say something.
Okay.
I want to thank Josh for revitalizing this area and the beautiful job that he's done with doing it. It's probably the best thing that's happened to Jenks in 20 years. And when you go by there now and you look at the parking lot, it's awesome to see all those cars and all the families. And we had tournaments this weekend, and the parking lot was full down there with the kids. So I thank Josh. And if we're ready for a motion, I'd like to be the first to say, I motion we approve it.
I'll second.
All right. Is there any more discussion? Right. Yes. Thank you, Josh, for your investment. And we really appreciate it. Let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Bach,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Ogier,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
Yes. All right. Let me make my way back to the agenda items here. Item 5, request to approve ordinance number 1535 related to JZ 20661 PUD 121, creating a planned unit development for the general location of 716 West Main Street.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Bach,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Ogier,
Yes.
Kaylin, Kaylin,
Yes. Sorry, guys.
Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
Yes. Item 6, request to approve emergency clause for ordinance number 1535, making it effective immediately upon passage.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, let's vote. Thank you.
Isbell,
Yes.
Bach,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Ogier,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
Yes. Item 7, request to approve preliminary/conditional final plat for Aquarium Place Carriage Homes. The general location is the southwest corner of East Aquarium Place and South 3rd Street. Ms. Hilton, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. This item is a preliminary final plat. It was part of a planned unit development, PUD 114. The PUD the PUD was approved. Sorry, I'm cleaning again.
It's Josh, not me.
The PUD was approved, and now we're at the platting phase. And the thing that you need to consider is, does the plat meet the requirements of the subdivision regulations and properly document the PUD development standards and conditions as were approved by the city council? So if you look on page 100 of your staff report, kind of shows you some of the planning data. We had one member of the community that had a question or a couple of concerns at Planning Commission, and you can see that they were addressed during a Planning Commission meeting. On page 101, it has staff comments, and this were staff comments from January of 2019. At that time, Mr. Jim Beach was a city planner, and this is taken from the letter that for the condition of approval for the planned unit development. So I kind of went through and explained that each one of these items, 1 through 10, number 1 is a planning item. Number 2 is a zoning and construction / building permit item. Number 3 is an engineering construction building permit. Number 4, engineering construction building permit. Number 5, a little bit planning, as in planning department looks at it, but primarily it's engineering construction and building permit. Number 6, engineering construction building permit. Number 7, engineering construction building permit. Number 8, engineering construction building permit. Number 9, this was a PUD requirement, and number 10, also a PUD requirement. The Technical Advisory Committee met on August 7th, 2020. The primary person who spoke up about this was Matthew Riley from PSO. He's in coordination with Wallace Engineering to talk about and discuss how they will manage the overhead power lines in the alley. And just kind of to remind you all of the process of development. The first thing that has to be discussed is the planning appropriate, or is the zoning appropriate, and is the use allowed on that site. And that use has been approved on the site. It was approved as a planned unit development. There was about 4 hours of council conversation, and I did listen to all of it. I have about 12 pages of notes, and they can actually do just straight apartments on this site. The other thing to remember is once a zoning is allowed and approved, then the next step in simple, just straightforward development is to get their plat approved. And the plat is literally just a legal document that establishes the property line, gives a legal description, always has to have a north arrow, has to have a little scale. And there's a lot of just technical things. I have about 2 pages that the subdivision regulations require. Then I go to a couple of other cities that have some good ideas of things to look for. I go through them and I check them off one by one. If those items are met in the plat, then I'm going to recommend approval of the plat. And in this case, the only comment that I had was the building lines were missing. Wallace Engineering has put the building lines on the plat and they're there. So on page 103, you kind of see the general location on the zoning map. Then I put in a little Bing map. So on page 104 of the staff report says, staff believes the requested plat meets the requirements of PUD 114 and other required city codes. Staff does not believe the plat is injurious to the city of Jenks or its citizens. Building permits are contingent upon meeting the requirements of the approved PUD, engineering, and other city regulations. And I asked them to please put the building setbacks in. But as you know, we send these out about a week in advance before the actual council meeting, so that generally gives the applicant time to make corrections, which has happened tonight. In the meantime, I did have a conversation with Councilor Lynn and the city manager this morning. And Councilor Lynn has had some concerns on this project, and she had 2 requests. And as far as I know, those requests will be honored tonight by the developer. And one was adding a taller fence. It is my understanding that the developer is willing to put in an 8-foot fence, screening fence. It will be in the alleyway. And then the other one was to strike the item number 10. That was one of the conditions of approval, just so that there is no option to have rooftop entertainment in the apartment complex. So those were the 2 things. It is my understanding that the developer has agreed to do that. The developer is on the line to answer questions, and I believe representatives, lots of people are online to talk about it if you want to, but I would recommend approval with those 2 conditions, or we may have conversation.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council on any of that?
Marcy, if I could get a clarification, I guess on page 101, we're under the TAC comments. The Chief Ostrom was concerned of the height of the building. Can the chief explain that maybe?
Sure. Maybe.
Sure, Councilor, yes. The difference with the height of the building is impact of what type of fire lanes we have to put in. Any building over 30 feet height requires an aerial apparatus road, and that's just a different set of requirements for the fire lanes.
Okay, so this is going to be adapted where the apparatus can get through then, I assume. Is that correct?
Yes, they'll have to meet the aerial apparatus requirements for a fire lane.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's what I was concerned about.
I do have a question about item number 10. As written, if the developer construct an area on the roof dedicated to outdoor uses as shown on page 14 of PUD text, page 74, it must be constructed in such a way to prevent visibility to the residential areas to the south. With that being said and written like that, I would like to hear from Kaylin as to the objection to the rooftop recreational area.
Councilor Lynn?
Are you with us, Councilor Lynn?
Well, oh, this might take a while.
Councilor Lynn, are you with us? You're muted.
Yes, when you get that high, even 3 stories high, Gary, you're taking away our privacy from the air. And when you get up that high, you will be able to see all the way to the levee, all the way to the turnpike. I lose my privacy to be in my backyard, even with the 3-story building. And that was one of the things that I have talked about even before I got into the council chair. And so that is not just me, but it's my whole neighborhood. We have a house that sits at 3rd and Beaver, and it's a young couple, and they have 2 small children, and they have a swimming pool also. And there's already things that happen down at the Thrives when, because I have a friend that has a 16-year-old daughter, and they have an above-the-ground pool, and she can't even use the pool without catcalls coming from the apartments above. And the Thrives look right in, just like it's going to look into this young couple. Just west of that one at 3rd and Beaver, we have another young couple with a young child, and it's the same situation. Then just west of that, we have a disabled mother, and her son takes care of her. So when you start invading our neighborhood in that fashion, and it's not just, you can see west, you can see south, and you can see directly, east, and you can see directly south. And I have voiced these concerns from the get-go because of the height of the building. Now, if it was 2-story high, there wouldn't be an issue with that. But it's the fact that we're losing our privacy. Not only that, but when you look in this neighborhood, there's nothing that fits the size of that building. That building will overpower the neighborhood, just exactly like the Thrives overpowers the end of Beaver Street. There's a cul-de-sac when you go across 7th Street, and the Thrives is right there. And I ask you to take a drive down there and see the invasion that the Thrives makes to that neighborhood. So there are many concerns. And so that's why I said, well, if you could just take off the rooftop, because I think if you'll look at the PUD, if you'll look at this, the PUD said, and this is when I was speaking to council and to the planning commission regarding this aerial invasion of privacy, that they said, okay, construct a screen so that it would make a safety net for us to the south of it, which we will be the most impacted by it. So I just want to share you that.
Okay, well, I would think that with the construction in a manner that would prevent visibility to the residential areas would suffice, even though the 3rd-story windows would allow you to see more into those homes than the rooftop would. So that's the reason I wanted an explanation.
Well, and they were also going to put balconies there, and they're supposed to, according to the conversations I've been having, the balconies are no longer going to be constructed either. And you're right in regard to the windows. So there is no way to totally put safeguards in for us. And I'm asking to put as many safeguards in place for us as possible. And that's
Okay.
all, from not just me, but for my neighborhood.
Thank you, Councilor Lynn.
And so I'm still confused if the rooftop is constructed to prevent visibility to the residential areas. What is the issue there?
If you do any type of rooftop, it goes back to people's behavior. And you're just going to make it, instead of 3 stories high, you're going to make it 4 stories high. And so you're just increasing issues there with that. When what purpose will it serve?
I mean, it adds to the utility of the building, I assume.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Well, you asked what purpose it serves. I think the purpose would be to add to the utility of the building.
Well, I think that when you go talking about that, you have to consider the neighborhood, Mayor. You have to consider the impact on the neighborhood and how the impact is going to happen. So
yeah, but there's so many 1-story houses in that area. Building is 2-story. I mean, we've lived in a 2-story and people could see in our backyard from their 2nd story. So, I mean, are you saying we should only have 1-story buildings in the whole of downtown? Is that what you're asking?
no, that's not what I'm asking at all.
Well, I don't have a problem with the rooftop issue because of the fact that even if it's a 3-story, people are going to be able to look out, whether they have a balcony or not, into other people's backyards. It is, I mean, it's development. So I'm a little confused as to what the 4th or the rooftop is going to have such an impact over a 2nd or 3rd story. It's just an additional story.
Exactly. You said it right there. It's just
it's an additional
story that's going to invade our neighborhood. So whenever you
nobody
start,
should build anything above a 1 or 2, actually a 1-story, because you can see in people's backyards in a 2-story. So it really makes no difference. It's pretty irrelevant.
Mayor, if I could interrupt before we get into too much back and forth on the utility or the value or the prettiness of a rooftop deck, it seems to me the applicant, with the objection of only 1 counselor, was pretty, at least from what I've heard, was pretty quick and easy to remove the rooftop. Now, if this creates any undue heartache for the applicant, I say we let them speak now. If the applicant really wants to put the rooftop deck in, we can continue to debate this. But if he has 0 interest in doing this, simply at the objection of 1 member of council, I don't even think we need to discuss it. I would propose we let the applicant speak as to if this has caused any undue harm to their project. If it hasn't, and he has no interest in putting on the rooftop deck, then let's let it go.
Thank you, Councilor Box.
I agree with Councilor Box.
And we have Mr. Phillips with us tonight. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening to our request here. I don't think it affects the project much. I mean, it would be a really cool feature to the building, but as far as if the neighbors around there are going to be concerned that people trying to look in their backyards, I don't have a problem with taking that off. The other thing that she had requested too was an 8-foot fence. I don't have a problem at all with building an 8-foot fence. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think it's wise, because I think we're going to have a lot of maintenance issues with an 8-foot fence. It's going to look out of place, an 8-foot fence. If you actually drive that alley, there's only about 2 houses that actually have a fence. Nobody else in the whole alley has a fence down through there. So even if you're standing in their backyard, they have no fence you can see in their backyard. So I don't really see the purpose of an 8-foot fence, but if that makes everybody's happy, then I'm more than willing to put the 8-foot fence in and take off the rooftop patio. So you guys just call.
Can you describe what you were wanting to do on the roof to construct it so that to prevent visibility to the residential areas?
It would, so probably what it would be a canvas that would be to the south. We could even put it to the west also. To the east, you've got the street and other homes, but it'd be a canvas type structure so that the wind could pass through that, but yet it would block direct views into their backyard, just to really as a visual barrier between the homes and the rooftop patio there. It would be a cool feature. Go up there and you could sign up there and see the City Jinx. I think you could almost see the football game, but so it would be a cool feature. But I don't want to get everybody all excited over the rooftop because it could go. It will add cost to the project because I've got to change the framing and make it structurally sound. So to me, it doesn't matter which way it goes. So.
Okay. Well, I'm okay with requirement number 10 staying there. If it's going to, kill the project either way, then, I'm flexible on that, but I don't have a problem with that.
Well, this is Councilor Dyke, it didn't seem to sound like it would kill the project, and Mr. Phillips even said it may even cost more, so I appreciate the compromise he's willing to make, because he understands where this neighborhood is coming from, and they are worried about, the invasion of privacy with having a taller building there. So I am very impressed with his willingness to say, okay, if it's this little things that I can change to make everybody happy. So I support that decision to remove number 10, especially if he's not, up in arms about it. Corey gave him the floor to say if it was an issue. So I don't understand why we would continue to belabor the point.
Dwayne, if I could ask on number 10, are you talking about a fabric type of material putting up on the south side and the west side? Who would be responsible for care of that? That, after a month or two, that it didn't start tearing apart or looking shabby or something like that?
So there would be, whenever you take fees from the residents, you have to build that into your fee. It'd be the developer or the owner's responsibility. If I were to sell the project, they'd have to take, because the thing about these apartments is we're asking higher rents. And so you're going to have to, have a good income. So it's going to have to look nice to keep your tenant.
Sure.
So you'd have to really take care of that project. Yeah.
Okay, good. And same thing with the fence, whether it's a 6 foot or an 8 foot, who's the same thing? The fees are going to be taken out. It'd be kind of a bank or HOA or something responsible for that.
On the fence, since it's on the city property, the city would actually be responsible for that 8 foot fence. So that's why I'm saying I don't think that you want it to be an 8 foot fence. I think a 6 foot would fit in and would work, do the same purpose. But I just think if you add that extra, I'm actually a structural engineer, a light structural engineer. So you add that extra 2 foot of wind, and you're still trying to use 4x4 posts like you'd build a 6 foot fence. And I really think it's going to create problems in the future. I can't guarantee that's going to happen. It may stand there forever, but I think it's going to create a wind issue. Plus, if you drive that alley, there's only 2 homes that even have a fence. Everybody else has no fence at all. So you can stand in the backyard and see into their back door actually. So I don't think a fence accomplishes that much. I want to put a 6 foot fence up, but the 8 I can, and I'll go either way on that one also. That's your call, but I really think a 6 would work fine there.
Okay.
I would hope the council would be willing to compromise on the fence as well. I personally think we need to be careful what we wish for. An 8 foot fence, in my opinion, is an eyesore. And I think if we give the applicant some flexibility on the size, I'm not saying it's 6 or 7, but if the applicant would do us the courtesy of with the cost savings on the smaller fence, if you could add some soundproofing mitigation properties to the fence, maybe an extra layer, a thicker picket, whatever the case may be. I think ultimately I think 6 foot fence provides a lot of privacy. Almost every fence in the city of Jenks is probably a 6 foot privacy fence. If we could add some soundproofing to it with your cost savings, if the council will agree to compromise with you, that would be really appreciated, because ultimately we want to take care of the 2 neighbors, we want to mitigate the sound, want to give them some privacy. But I completely agree that an 8 foot fence is way over engineered, and the cost is really not something the city wants to maintain. So I would hope the council could come to a compromise on the fence.
I don't disagree with that. I don't know if how costs or how adding soundproofing would help with the cost or not. I know that can get pretty expensive once you start going down that road. But I take all the points that you made.
And what kind of noise are we talking about? I mean, it's apartments, correct?
That's correct. It's residential, so there won't be any noise.
So I don't know that we need soundproofing.
Let's talk about
6 foot fence.
Dwayne, correct?
Yes.
If I'm
Yeah.
wrong. But isn't there going to be garages off of that alley?
There is going to be garages, yes. So the cars.
So you're going to have cars going up and down the alley. You're going to have cars going in and out of the garages, and your garage doors going up and down. And we don't have that down there now because nobody drives the alley.
But you
so
have
going to be a workable alley. So that's the purpose of the fence, is to protect the neighbors from the noise that's going to be mitigated from the use of the alley and the garage.
So what's the difference between the alley and the street, though? I mean, people go up and down the streets all the time. Just because you're pulling out of a driveway doesn't mean it's going to be that much louder. So I have an issue with that. I have an issue with the 8-foot fence, and I have an issue with the fact that you're talking about soundproofing something that just sounds ridiculous.
I'm not suggesting soundproofing a picket fence. I was simply suggesting, you can get a 1/2-inch picket or you get a 1-inch picket. And frankly, you don't have to be a scientist to realize that a thicker piece of wood probably absorbs more sound. I'm not asking the applicant to soundproof the fence. I'm asking for the applicant, as a courtesy to this compromise, do whatever is actually possible to make the fence as high quality as it can be, to minimize the sight lines and the sound. And if that's possible with modern day construction, knock yourself out.
Councilman Box, I think that vegetation along the fence may be better than making the fence thicker. So if they were maybe put some type of evergreens, I think it's going to have, there's a fly in here, sorry. It's going to have to, I think, go on the back side or the south side of that fence. But I think one of those homes is a rental home, and some people may not want the vegetation. I mean, I think really just a 6-foot fence and down that alley is going to be great privacy, and I really think that, in my opinion, will work just great. So. Yeah.
Dwayne, it's good to see you again. Haven't seen you in quite some time.
See you, sir.
I'm glad to see you back on the city again, working this development. I know you will always provide us a quality product, and from the renderings I've seen in the past, I think you'll do us justice with this facility. I do want to mention the fact that the near homes have at least 50 feet to their structures, if not 100 feet to the main structures of the homes. So I think a 6-foot fence with perhaps some vegetation would be more than adequate.
Yes, sir. I agree, sir.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Phillips? Okay. Any other discussion from council or questions for Ms. Hilton?
Is this a time, I don't know, Marseille can hear me too, but is this a time on maintenance of that area in regard to if they build a fence that goes to the apartment complex to maintain that area and that barrier from the neighbors?
Councilor Land, I know we spoke about that earlier, and after I went back upstairs and began to reflect on it, if they build it in the alley, which is the only place they can build it, it becomes city property and it will be maintained by the city. So it's no different than they will improve 3rd Street, but we will maintain it.
I mean, I will say as the developer on that one that I'm going to want that to look really nice. And so if pickets come off and stuff like that, I'll take it upon myself too to help maintain that fence. Like I said, it's going to be high-end rents, and so it's got to look nice. So I'll also be involved in taking care of that fence too, and any vegetation that's planted as well.
Okay, thanks, Dwayne.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Oh, go ahead.
It's my understanding that we're looking at continuing to remove number 10 for the roof, but instead of an 8-foot fence, it would just be a 6-foot fence. And that's what we would go with for approval. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I would vote for any iteration of that. I'm not going to have any heartburn either way. I'm happy with it as written. But if we want to remove any of those, whatever motion is made, I don't have an issue with it.
Okay. I would like to make the motion to approve this with the change of the removal of number 10 and with the continuing to keep the 6-foot fence if that's how it was written.
And I'll second that motion.
Is item 10 removed from the motion?
Yes.
Well, I just question that, I guess, because Dwayne said that he's here or there on it. It would cost him more if he did do it, but he may start developing this thing and find out that people may want an option of having a rooftop event or a rooftop activity. I don't know. I just hate removing it and then his hands are tied totally. He can't do that. I don't know.
Well, but Dwayne said he was okay with it, so I don't understand why. Dwayne, would you tell us if it was a really big deal and you didn't want it, you weren't okay with it? Like you mentioned the fence. You'd rather stick with the 6. Well, I'm Craig the one who brought up the weeds, so I'm just following up with Mr. Phillips.
That's exactly. I'm here for a long time, so I want to keep everybody happy. And so I really don't think it's going to make a big difference in our project. I know that at 727 Lofts, we're at about 73, 74%. And that little space that's between the apartments and the garage actually was that 30 feet that would become a big deal because there's some fire pits back there and some things. It'd be tougher to get to this because you have to go up another flight of stairs. But I don't really think it's going to be a detriment. Now, what would happen is if I were to go through this, and I guess we could do it a couple ways. I want to keep everybody happy, but if maybe I had an option to show you a visual barrier to get accepted, or I don't know, maybe we just take it off and make it simple. It's 7:20. I'm getting hungry, so. But I'm really good either way. If
we're
that's
really good at putting those really tiny little specifications in there. If you really want us to get in the weeds.
Yeah.
You laugh.
No, I'm just trying to leave an option open for him. But if we remove it and he's okay with it, then that's fine.
Let me just hang on. Give me 2. Take it out. Take it out. I'm good with taking it out.
Donna, I think you're muted if you're trying to talk to us.
Okay, sorry. I was trying not to interrupt. The only problem I was thinking of was the fact that if you're looking at potential people that are renting this, they would find this rooftop maybe another perk to the facility itself. And that's what I was trying to get to, is the fact that, if you have a rooftop and you're going to be able to see the whole city and you'll be able to, I don't know, go up there and spend some time. And it's just that added, perk that you don't get with other facilities. So
a great place to watch the football game. I totally agree. But so if I had a way to block the south and the west, so that you could actually see north, that would be cool. You can see downtown Jenks. I mean, of course, you guys know my hope is that we make Jenks a very walkable city. And in order to do that, you have to get the density downtown Jenks. You got to get the people here. And you want them walking downtown and having lunch downtown and say, hey, come over to my house afterwards. We'll watch a football game and we'll have a couple drinks or something. And that adds that component to this. But again, you have to consider, although in City of Jenks master plan, that whole street down through there is meant to do just what we're doing. And so privacy is privacy is the deal with looking into those houses, it's going to be that way the entire length of that street. And so this is not the only time that we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about it again, and it'll be soon. And hopefully there'll be more developers going to talk about the same thing. So consider that when you do this, because I can go either way.
That was a very good point you made with respect to the future zoning and the walkability, the density. I could go either way, and I'm kind of leaning toward leaving item number 10 in at this point. Whether you want to develop it or not, we want to give you the option, as Councilor Murray stated.
I think
I would agree with that.
I think if you set a precedent, and again, Councilor Lynn looking right at me, but if you set a precedent now of taking that off, I think that it'll be easier to do the next time. So I think you have to look to the future. I mean, we want that street developed and we want density down through there. In order to do that, you're going to have some 3- and 4-story structures down through there. And the homes will be, although they're important and everybody's opinion is important, but we got to get downtown Jenks dense. And we want all the buildings to be this tall. And we want to have a problem with parking. And we want to have a problem with too many people walking around. And this is hopefully the start of some of that stuff. So it is a cool perk. But again, that's, I'm gonna let you guys decide that. I'm trying to be a good neighbor here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really would prefer if number 10 stayed in as well.
I would agree.
So we can.
So you would prefer something and you would lose your privacy. And so that's what you're asking the neighborhood to do, is to lose their privacy.
The way
that's what I'm hearing.
The way this is written, it preserves the privacy.
It also adds the height. And
We can't avoid that, Kaylin. There's
It
gonna
says
be
it must
five
be
buildings.
constructed. It must be constructed in such a way to prevent visibility to residential areas to the south.
Right.
Mr. Phillips, in your professional opinion, how much taller will this building be if you should be allowed to proceed with an upstairs deck? I'm talking about the building itself, where my feet are standing.
So we'd have to get, I think it's going to be 6 foot because you want to get up to above your eye level when you stand up. So it'll be, for me, it's a lot shorter than some of you, but I think probably 5'6" to 6 foot probably. And it's going to be a canvas screen that's going to, and more than likely it's going to have to kind of come down 3rd Street. So it's going to be some on the east, the south, and the west in order to give it stability. I don't think you'll be able to build an L. It's going to have to be kind of a U shape or a J shape to give it some stability. But, and then maybe, like we're doing the rooftop bar down at on 15th Street, there's actually a structure that you can pull across the top and blocks the sun, so you can get out of the sun if you wanted to. And again, it's a canvas type structure, and it's on pulleys. It's not mechanical. It's hand drawn. So, and you could do the same thing on the roof as well. Actually, it'd be something that would need to be designed and maybe passed back through council, see if it meets that requirement.
Okay, now one other comment for you. You passed the buck a few minutes ago and decided to leave this to us, and we're going to go ahead and give you a gift. This is one of those rare moments for the applicant. We want you to know, do you want this to proceed forward with a vote with your rooftop or without? I know your gentleman in the back said get rid of it, but what would you like to see out of this project? We're going to vote yes or no, and you'll have your day in court. What would you like to see?
If I had my rathers, I'd like to see it in. That gives me an option. That way I have the option. And I'm not because if I get 3 or 4 people come in and they said if the rooftop bar would be panel would be cool, and maybe they're sold off. Maybe even the carriage homes are sold off as condos. We haven't made that decision yet. That would be another perk to them. So it's it would help me sell probably.
And Mayor, do you envision a motion tonight where we would have to demonstrate, where the applicant would have to demonstrate that this is going to indeed provide all the required privacy that is being promised? Or do you envision that we just approve this with a rooftop bar in privacy to the neighbors, and we hope it works? What do you guys, how do you guys want to see this? This certainly can't come back to council again for us to approve whether or not privacy has been accomplished to the neighbors. We're going to have to believe that this is going to work, or we don't believe it.
No, you're calling it a rooftop bar. It's not a rooftop bar. He talked about that in 15th Street.
No,
I apologize. I must be thinking of something else. But a rooftop deck, and the applicant says here that they're going to, doesn't say guarantee privacy to the neighbors, but I think that's what Councilor Lane is looking for. I think that's what the neighbors are looking for. So if we're going to reverse course again and proceed forward with item number 10 included, do we want to take a second look at this privacy guarantee, or do we want to proceed forward and trust that the applicant will provide it?
Well, the language is pretty cut and dry. I don't know, is that something that is in the inspection process? Where is that part verified that it is in fact, visibility is in fact prevented?
We have a map of the.
Generally, it would go through the site plan building inspections process, and they are very diligent to look at the planned unit development and make sure that the structure meets all the requirements that were in that. And I will certainly draw that to the code enforcement or building inspections department so that they know that this is a very serious, very important issue, and that the item number 10 says specifically it must be constructed in such a way to prevent visibility to residential areas to the south. And that's very important, and that should be handled and can be handled at a staff level.
Okay.
Visibility was the only concern from the neighbors?
That was what Councilor Lett's primary concern was. That was the primary concern during the council meeting when it was approved.
Yeah, with the size of the building, I just want to be too was also a concern that had already gone through in the PUD. So the size and stuff like that could not be changed. The only thing that could be looked at as far as trying to help with the size of the building was the roof and the invasion again. I don't know about these canvases and things like that. I have not got a clue about that. I don't think anybody on council has a clue about it. But we were just looking at ways in the discussion to decrease, like I said, the invasion of our privacy. And because that, when you consider the size of the project, which I wish that there was a picture that could be shown to everybody, because 4 of us was not even on council when this happened, and the PUD went through. So this is a very large building, the way that I remember it. And so it's already going to overpower the neighborhood. So that's where I'm coming from. Again, you're taking away the privacy of the neighborhood. You will be able to see all the way to the turnpike, and it takes away the ability of us in the backyard to lighten the conversation. So it is a very serious situation for us, and especially the ones that are right there where you're going to be able to see right into their backyard and take away. So if this is something, I'll ask each of you, because I know where each of you live. Is this something you want out your front door? Don't you think that the neighborhood, as we progress forward, deserves some kind of a protection from this? So that's all I'm asking. Dwayne will do a fabulous job. I have not a doubt in the world about that at all. So how do we bridge that, and how do we soften that with the neighborhood going forward? Y'all know I'm 100% for this development going down Aquarium. That's the whole point of things. Most of y'all know that from 1st Street to 7th Street is scheduled to be, I think it's in the comprehensive plan, to be developed. And so I think these are things that we have to think about. How are you going to soften that coming into our neighborhood? That's my question to you. How do we soften it?
Councilman Lynn, I think that one comment that we should make right now is that although this project really is taking the blunt of privacy, is that really this decision was made years ago when we decided to make that a destination area down the street. That's on the other side. I mean, it's not, although this project's taking advantage of that, that decision really was made years ago. And I wouldn't even involve in it because you guys decided to make that a commercial property. Down that street is a commercial property. And so that really wasn't even made with this council, it was several councils ago. So although I'm kind of getting beat up about it, it really wasn't my push. That decision was made years ago.
If I may say 2 things. One, I was on Planning Commission when this came through, and we spent hours discussing it at that time with respect to the development and came to an agreement adjustments were made by council after it went to them with respect to parking for the commercial versus the residential. And all of that was decided way back when. That's my first point. The second point is the fact that we have decided as a city, as a council, to move forward with high density housing in this area. And for us to proceed to the 2025 plan, 2035 plan, however far forward we're going to look, we have to consider this as a decision that will set the course of action for everything we do in this area going forward. So I would like to allow the flexibility for the developers to be able to produce a quality product, which I know Dwayne will do, in this space for the future of the city.
That is right. And I don't agree with that, Gary. What I'm asking is, how do we move forward but soften it for the neighborhood? And that's been the conversation going back and forth on this, is how to do this and soften it as the neighborhood. And I will use the word invaded, because this is part of it. There's much more to this as far as the antiquated infrastructure and other than just the invasion. But that is the topic tonight, is the invasion. So how do we challenge each of you, instead of just looking at a square block with the neighborhood, and just do some brainstorming? How do you soften it? How do you do that, instead of just asking the neighbors who've put in all their years here, like myself? How do you want us, and how do you want me to present it to our neighbors, instead of saying, by golly, this is what we're going to do? I know where you all live, every one of you, and not a one of you would want this at your front door.
But we have to keep in mind the comprehensive plan that we're setting forward.
Well, I'm acutely aware of the comprehensive plan. What I'm asking you to do is to figure out how to soften it. We need to develop it. I don't have a problem with that, but we need to consider the neighborhood. How many hours have we, before a building is ever built, how many hours have we spent to, well, the fence needs to have top on top of it. No, it needs to have a base on top of it. Well, it all needs to be the same. You're already looking at an establishment that you're wanting invade, and I use that word lightly, because again, I challenge each of you: drive down into Beaver Street, go across 7th Street, and look how the Thrives invade that neighborhood. That's all I'm asking you to do, to be fair in your judgment. So,
from what I'm understanding, Councillor Lynn, is I think we're just trying to, this is setting the precedent, as Mr. Phillips mentioned. So trying to come up with a happy medium to where we do continue to develop this, yet we don't make these residents go up in arms. And so what is the best way to do that? And preserve what they already have. Because like as she said, when they moved in there, they didn't know this would be developed. But then we did go ahead and approve the comprehensive plan to develop everything. So where, just down the road, is this going to be an issue we run into every time that we want to build another place there? And if so, should we just set the standard now for, well, you know, we aren't going to do that because that is looking into their backyards, or it's okay, we've decided it's all right. So I mean, I think that's a big decision for today to make on that.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm asking you, each counselor, to drive down Beaver Street, go across 7th Street. It's a cul-de-sac down there. I just ask you to go look. That's all I'm asking. And then come up with some ideas and let's brainstorm. Brainstorm with me on how this will affect the neighborhood, how we can work with Dwayne, whatever developer comes in here, to soften it. There are ways to do that instead of just saying, that's it. You know, that's all I'm asking. I think that this is be a great team effort for the council as we go forward with this. That's all I'm asking.
Mayor?
We let her know.
Yes.
Trying to let her.
May I speak?
Please.
It's very difficult to hear Councilor Land talking, and I just wanted to make that known. But also, I wanted to remind everyone that we are in the process of updating the zoning code and the subdivision regulations. And tonight, we are really considering a plat. And a plat is a very simple, very straightforward document. And moving forward, I think that we should look at them for what they are. And once something is approved, it's very difficult to go back and renegotiate those items. But we can certainly have a very broad and in-depth conversation in the next few weeks. I'm happy to meet with you all individually or in a group. We can have a work session. I'm available to have a broader conversation about development in the downtown. What does the comprehensive plan say, and what are your goals and your visions? Because it's about the entire community. But and I appreciate everyone, and I thank you for your comments, Councilor Lamb, but it was very, very difficult inside here to hear what you were saying. So just a reminder that this is a plat, it's a technical document, it's one lot, one block, and the planned unit development has already been approved.
Thank you. And you're right, we did, three of us were there the night this was, or were on council when this was, the PUD was approved, and I think there was something like 20 requirements that were put on the original application. I feel like this language, it must be constructed in a way to prevent visibility to the residential areas. Does just what Councilor Lynn is wanting it to do. She may not agree with that, but I do feel like that does soften that in the way that we're looking at. So that's my feeling on it. We have a motion on the table. We could have a new motion. I don't think I would vote for the motion on the table as stated.
So what's the motion again? Can somebody repeat it? Because I think we should leave the rooftop in with the 6-foot fence with the privacy screening like he was talking about.
Yeah, so you need to make a
neighbors.
new motion because it
Okay.
didn't include that. So you need a new motion for that.
Okay, so I would move to go ahead with the patio on the top with the screening that he's described and the 6-foot fence.
So that's exactly as it's written.
Okay.
The fence is not in the conditions, so we don't even need to address the fence.
Okay.
You can simply say we approve this item as is, and we're good
Okay.
with all the existing 10 conditions.
I would suggest we approve it as is.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Let's vote.
Isbell,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
OJ,
Yes.
Kalen. Murray,
Yes.
Fairley.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear Kaylin's.
I thought I heard her say no.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that good conversation.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Dwayne. All right, so we will move on to item 8. Request to approve ordinance 1534, amending the Jenks zoning code to add proper zoning for medical marijuana related businesses. Ms. Hilton.
I don't know what happened. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, my screen just went up.
We just moved on to the next item.
Okay.
So I'll reintroduce it. This is item 8, request to approve ordinance number 1534, amending the Jenks zoning code to add proper zoning for medical marijuana related businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. This is an item that is very timely. We get a lot of requests in the city of Jenks for dispensaries, for medical marijuana and grow houses, etc. We at the city have taken our time making the code and updating it in 2000. I have the wrong staff report. Basically, some time ago in 2018, I think we, as a state, adopted and allowed for the medical marijuana law House bill. And tonight we are putting into code. We're adding a new use unit, and we spent many hours looking over this, mostly Brandon. I'd like to say thank you to him. He did a lot of research and put this ordinance together for you. It reflects what the law says and primarily sends everyone back to the law, but does designate where you can do, where these uses are allowed. So the only one that I pointed out really to Planning Commission was combustible processing, because we had a big conversation during the comprehensive plan update about the potential dangers of certain chemicals being used. And so that one is only allowed as a specific use permit. So if someone wanted to use that chemical as a processing agent, or a combustible chemical as a processing agent, it would come to Planning Commission and to City Council for permission. And I thought that was fair. The city attorney also looked at it, and you can see in there she has provided a memo and she supports the ordinance as it is written. And I didn't have any other comments. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will find my staff report.
I have a point of clarification, if I could.
Sure.
With respect to commercial growers, they can only grow in areas zoned agriculture, except for commercial general or commercial high intensity, which will require a special use permit. And would that special use permit come before council?
Yes, sir. Specific use permits always come to council. So that was my thoughts on that, is because we have commercial areas dedicated for tax revenue producing entities, and a grow house does not produce taxes. And so I think it's very important that Planning Commission and Council weigh in on whether or not they think that that is a good and allowable use for that area, and if they want it to take place. And certainly within the specific use permit process, you have the authority to say no or yes. So,
okay, thank you. It brought to mind a property, I believe it was last year, that we approved to grow marijuana that's commercial, that was close to a school property, and there was nothing at that time we could do to prevent that from happening. So that's why I wanted that clarification on the record.
yes.
Thank you.
And you still have to meet all state requirements, and state law says that you have to be 1,000 feet from the entrance of any public or private school.
So with respect to the cell,
Just for
or the dispensary. Yeah, dispensary. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
How about in Old Town? Can they be built in Old Town? I can't say it with a straight face, Kay. It was a facetious question. I apologize.
So, yes, if you want me to answer your facetious question, if a property is zoned CH or
I am having a terrible time. I'm so sorry. What'd you say, Dawn?
She is clarifying for us, Kay, if we can have a grow house in Old Town Jenks. And so she's saying yes, if it is something, she's going to tell us.
You could make application to the city through the planning department for a grow house in the downtown. I probably would not recommend approval, but you could make application.
Well,
Okay.
looked like I wouldn't have something to say about that.
I was
Any
just
other
being
questions?
funny.
Actually,
It's not
did you
always
see the
appropriate.
greenhouse? Did you see the greenhouse I put in my backyard?
She's growing
Now
up.
think about it.
Now we know.
You all will be breaking down my door next.
That's why
We'll look forward to your application.
Ask me how much I'm going to charge you. That is to break down my front door. You better make friends with Buddy.
Any other questions on that?
Yeah, Mayor, I have a question. Does this ordinance have any details in it as it relates to the proximity of how far a dispensary can be from another one? I can tell you from in the city of Tulsa, in order to prevent dispensaries from being on every corner, they have a proximity rule, and I'm not going to tell you I know what the proximity rule is, but do you guys have any interest in looking at adopting this as a standard, but perhaps adding a little bit of some language that says, look, we want to keep dispensaries at least a quarter a mile or half a mile from each other. Otherwise, we potentially could, look at having 3 or 4 of these on Main Street in the next 10 years. Just wanted to bring that up because Tulsa does do it. And in Tulsa, you have to go to the Board of Adjustment if you're trying to seek a dispensary location that's within, and nobody knows, a certain amount of feet from a dispensary that's already established. So just something to think about. Otherwise, we could have the same problem that they have in other cities.
Well, I think that it's in state law. There's already a distance requirement. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but.
Well, and tonight we're just voting on, I think, I don't think we're addressing dispensaries tonight. That's something that we could look into and answer that question, but I don't know if we're prepared to make that part of tonight's ordinance.
I think, Mr. Mayor, I'd have to make sure what the state law says and also talk with the city attorney to make sure that action, I think that if they do have them in a couple of places, so I can get back with you on that and we can table this if you want, or we can approve it as is and you can amend it either way.
I'm okay with the amendment process. I just can tell you that there's a city or two around here that enacted an ordinance very similar to what we're doing, using the state as a boilerplate, and then immediately ran into some issues with dispensaries wanting to pop up on every corner and then being challenged because it wasn't addressed initially. I don't know if that would happen to us. I don't know anything about the state statute or the law, but something for us to keep in mind if we have to address it again in the future. And obviously, if the dispensary wants to apply for an application, I don't want them to come in with a use by right and us not have the ability to say, hey, look, there's one there, there's one there. We don't need you on Main Street. So just keep that in mind as we don't know what we don't know quite yet. And I want to make sure we're aware of that.
I'm happy to bring this back to you in 2 weeks and get that information.
Yeah, I'd be happy to hear more about that too. But
Mayor, is that something you want to do? Are you guys willing to kick this can down the road for 2 weeks, or is there some pressing need to approve this tonight?
Well, I think we should kick it down the road for 2 weeks and get some more information on it to know exactly what the state law says, like Marseille said, because I think that's a great idea as far as saying we can only have it, they can't have it within a mile of each other. Because if you look now, we've got 3 dispensaries within 6 blocks of each other. So I like the idea of kicking it. Let's get the full degree of information that we need to make this decision.
Mayor, I make a motion that we delay item number 8 for the next council meeting so we get more information from our city planner.
Second.
Okay. All right. Is any other discussion on that before we vote? I don't think there's any hurry to pass this necessarily. Okay, then let's vote.
Isabel?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Boucher?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Lee?
Yes. All right, that brings us to the end of our, we will pull item number 9. Wait to item 8. That brings us to adjournment. Are there any motions to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Let's vote.
Isabel?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Boucher?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Lee?
Yes. We're doing another quick one. We'll call to order the Jenks Public Works Authority, September 15th, 2020, 7:52 p.m. Let's call roll, please.
Isabel?
Here.
Fox?
Here.
Dyke?
Here.
Boucher?
Here. Here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I heard you.
Good.
Here.
Murray,
Here.
Jody.
I'm here. Let's start with the general manager's report. Mr. Trout.
Chair and all members of the authority. Something I guess we could have brought up with the INCOG update, but I kind of forgot about was the low water dam. The INCOG applied for a grant from the federal government. I think it was $20 to $25 million back in May to help with the construction of that project. And we should be hearing if Tulsa and Jenks are granted that or awarded that grant probably this week. And so we will have news on that hopefully this week or early next week. And then on the last council agenda or the last authority agenda, we had the authorization to purchase the four properties behind the police station. And we closed on those four properties on Friday afternoon. And so we are working with the tenants to find other housing, and we own those properties now, and hopefully we can find other houses for those people that live there. We're being very flexible with them, and once they're all out and the properties are cleaned out, we will go ahead and move forward with demolition. So that is what I have. And if you have any questions on the project update, Robert Carr or I will be more than happy to answer those questions.
All right, great. Thank you. Any questions? All right, very good. Then we will move on to the monthly chamber report. Mr. Driscoll, are you there?
Live and in person. Mr. Chairman, members of the authority, and trustee Isabel's cat, it's good to see you all tonight. Yes, Gary, I noticed your cat earlier. I apologize for just getting you the report this morning. I usually like to give you a couple days notice, but I was out of town and didn't have any technology available, so I apologize for that. I've got a couple of quick highlights that I want Zach to kind of talk our business retention and expansion program. We talked earlier, the Aquarium Authority, Kenny mentioned that sometimes these reports reflect something that we're actually, that's past or that we're working on now. So in the report, we talk about we were working with a high-end restaurant. We're meeting with them in Jenks tomorrow, so hopefully we'll have some good news moving forward on that one. We also met with a local business about a large event he was wanting to do, and they've announced it now. Gotwood Axe Throwing in downtown is hosting at Riverwalk the Angry Wood 2020. It is the state's largest axe throwing competition. So we're working with them on potentially beefing that up next year, trying to get some national media exposure. So we're trying a couple of different options there. I think this could be a unique to Jenks fun event to go through. If you haven't tried axe throwing yet, I do highly recommend that. But I do want to know we had the food truck festival at the end of last month. Councilor Isabel was there. I'm assuming you ate a lot of food.
Of course.
But, the attendance wasn't what it normally is, but we certainly expected that. So we typically get 13,000 to 15,000 people. This year was probably plus or minus, 6,000 people. So it was still a healthy turnout, but not, near what it usually is. But the trucks were happy with it. A couple of them I talked to were excited. This was the first and only event they've been able to do this year. So they enjoyed the opportunity to sell some good and maybe not the healthiest food to us. But we do want to thank Public Works and the Police Department for their partnership that allows us to do this. We use the Gator for Public Works. The Police Department's great about helping us with road closures and things like that. So I'll stop and answer any questions before I turn it over to Zach for a fun song and dance number he's been working on.
Any questions for Josh?
Okay.
Will you be participating in the axe throwing competition?
I'm gonna have to practice a lot more if I want to do that, but it is fun, and I have hit a couple of bullseyes in my very short career of like 3 games.
Okay, well, we believe in you, so just keep trying.
Great. Okay, I'm going to bring up now Zach Thomas, our Director of Economic Development, to kind of update you on our business retention and expansion program.
All right, welcome, Zach.
Thank you, Josh. Mayor, Councilman, Councilwomen.
Good to be back. Unfortunately, there is no dance and song show. I think Josh misled you there. But I want to talk about business retention and expansion really quickly. A quick reminder of what that is. We call it BRE, which is Economic Development Strategy, to proactively connect with existing businesses and to understand and respond to local business issues, challenges, etc. But of course, the end goal is to make sure that we can retain our businesses here in Jenks, but also to help them grow and to thrive, whether that be they're looking for a new location to expand or having trouble with labor, which we'll get into later on. So the way we carry out BRE is through in-person meetings. We do this to gather data, to build relationships, because everything that we talk about is considered confidential. So we can make sure that we have the trust of those businesses that we are meeting with. So some of the data that we do gather is revenue, number of employees, how long they've been in business for, and the challenges that they're facing, whether that's, hey, we're just having trouble through COVID, or we're not sure why we're seeing a drop off in people coming in, etc. So, but one thing that we have noticed through our meetings with businesses so far has been labor. That's been a common issue for especially retailers. So they just have an issue with keeping entry-level employees, whether that's for the number of employees and also retaining them is difficult. It's a challenge, right? Anybody in an entry-level position, not many people want to stay there for that long. So, yeah. But as we gather more data to understand the situation, we'll always be looking for ways to try and address this particular issue. So, but some positives are, despite the labor, revenues are doing really well. Businesses are doing better than expected. So, any questions?
With respect to employee retention, do you think that's a COVID-19 thing, or it's just an ongoing issue?
Yeah, a conversation, we've had with some of our retailers, and they're seeing it nationwide, and some of the people we're talking to and our colleagues. It's kind of a nationwide thing. It's probably worse here in Jenks because of our demographic, our higher end demographic. These entry-level jobs aren't paying that well, so there's not a lot of, local talent, so to speak, to pull from. So as the outlet mall goes to open and we see more retailers come in, I think as an organization on our side, the chamber, we're going to need to look at, maybe some job fairs and some regional partners, and see who we can bring in, especially people we remind them, it's 15 minutes or less from almost anywhere in Tulsa you can be in the Jenks, and, it's a safe place to work and with some high quality folks. So I think on that end, that's going to be difficult. Some of our more specialty retailers, one in particular I remember you speaking to, and I've spoken to them over the years, is they feel like they get somebody trained, to their specifications, and then another job comes in that offers maybe, a couple dollars more an hour. And because profit margins are so thin at some of these places, it's hard to keep them there.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Well, thanks for all your work on that, Zach. And does anyone else have any questions for Zach or Josh?
Okay.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you all.
And we will move on to our first item of business, consideration and appropriate action relating to a request for approval of the consent agenda. Do we have any questions or motions on that consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, thank you.
Isbell?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Butcher?
Yes.
Kaylin? You're muted, Kaylin. Counselor Lynn?
Yes.
Thank you. Murray?
Yes.
Chair Lee?
Yes. We will pull item 2. And are there any motions to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Let's vote.
Isbell?
Yes.
Fox?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Butcher?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Chair Lee?
Yes, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.